Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to cut and sew trouser, straight trouser. So the measurements that are needed for this palazzo trouser, you can call it palazzo but not that so palazzo because it's going to have a fitting at the lap, and the circumference, knee and ankle circumference are going to be wide, so we can call it, you can pass for a palazzo pants. So the measurements we need are as follows. We have the trouser length of 39, we have the trouser waist of 40, we have the crotch depth of 10, we have the lap circumference of 30, we have the knee length 17, we have the round knee of 26, we have the round ankle 26, we have the hip 48, and the hip length is 7.5. Like I said in my previous video of body measurements, when you're dividing your waist and your hip, you divide it by 4. But if you are dividing your lap, when you divide your lap by 2, and your round knee and round ankle by 2. So from these calculations now, we have our trouser waist as 40 divided by 4, which is 10. We have our lap as 30 divided by 2, which is 15. We have our round knee as 26 divided by 2, which is 13. We have our round ankle as 26 divided by 2, which is 13. We have our hip as 48 divided by 4, which is 12. So these are the measurements we're going to work with. So first of all, I'm going to mark out these measurements on my fabric. I'm doing a freehand method. Maybe subsequently, probably in my other videos, subsequently I'm going to show you how to draft a pattern, a trouser pattern. Okay, so right now we're going to do it on a fabric direct freehand method. So now I'm going to line out my measurements on the fabric. So remember, it's a trouser, so I'm going to remove my band. I'm not going to start my tape from here. I'm going to remove the number of inches of band I want to put on my trouser, and I want to put 2 inches band. So I'm going to remove that 2 inches and start taking my vertical measurements. And the first vertical measurement I'm going to take is the hip length, which is 7.5. 7.5. I'm going to add ½ inch for the joining of the band. So that's why I'm going to mark 8 inches there. Then for my crotch depth is 10. This is 10. I'm going to also add ½ inch to join the band. Then I'm going to add extra 1 inch, because if you are sewing a trouser, there's especially the front, center front, you're going to remove about 1 inch or 1/4 inch at the center front, so that it's going to give you a fitting on your waist. So that is what I'm going to add back on my crotch depth, because if you don't add, it's going to affect your crotch length. So my crotch length is 10 plus half of joining the band, which is 10.5, plus 1/4 of taking off that 1/4 we're going to take off at the center front. So this is my crotch length. Then the trouser length is 39. So I'm going to mark my trouser length 39 plus my folding allowance, which is 2 inches. I'll mark it here. Then also my knee length. My knee length is 17 plus ½ inch to join the band. I'll mark it here. So I'm going to rule the lines across so that I can be able to identify my lines. Guys, I hope you guys are seeing this my chalk. I hope it's visible enough for you to see. So I'll mark my vertical measurements through the lines. This is my knee length. It's my knee length. Mark my knee length. Then I mark my trouser length. So guys, I finished marking the line. The next thing is for me to input my horizontal measurements. But before I do that, I'm going to mark half inch all through on my side front. So I'm going to mark half inch all through down. If we are to be a fitted pant, if I come down on my knee length, I'll go in by 1.5 or 2 inches, depending on how slanting or fitting you want it to be. I go in by 1.5 or 2 inches, but because it's a straight trouser, I'll just do half inch all through. So I'm going to rule the line. Meanwhile, this is a crepe or light crepe, chiffon. Will I call it chiffon? Yeah, chiffon material. So it's kind of slippery. You have to be careful when you rule your lines because it might affect your measurements. It will just be shifting. So you just have to be careful as you rule your lines. Okay, so this is a half inch. I need to use my hand to do that so that I can see it very well. So now on my hip line, which is this line, I'm going to mark my hip measurement. My hip measurement is 48 divided by 4, which will give me 12. So on this half inch mark, I'm going to mark my 12, but I'm going to add my allowances. So I'm going to add half inch allowance to join the center front, and I'm going to add 1 inch for the side seam. So I'll have my new hip line here, which is 13.5. So I come up here on the waist and mark that 13.5 as well. This is for us to create a center front. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rule my line and create a center front. Okay, I create a center front. So this is now our center front line. Then I'm going to mark my waist measurement. From here now, I'm going to mark my waist measurement. Since it's a straight trouser, it does not need that. So I'll just put my waist measurement and my sewing allowance. My waist is 40 divided by 4 is 10. So I'll mark 10 inches plus 1.5 sewing allowance. So this is already my hip, 12 plus 1.5 sewing allowance. Okay, so now on my lap, I'm going to mark 30 divided by 2, 15. I'm going to mark 15 on my lap as on my crotch depth as my lap circumference, which is 15, and I'm going to add half inch to join the center and also 1 inch to join the side. So I have 1.5 as a whole. I put it there, mark it here. Then on my knee circumference, my round knee is 13. 26 divided by 2, which is 13. So here on my around knee, I mark 13 inches plus 1.5 and a half as well, which is give me 14 and a half. 14 and a half. So I'm going to mark 14 and a half all through down, because it's a palazzo, so the round knee and the round ankle are the same circumference. So I'm going to mark 14 and a half all through. 14 and a half all through. I think this is the simplest method of cutting a trouser. It works for me anyway. It works for me. Just get your knee circumference, ankle circumference, divide it by 2 and mark all through. Then when you are going to be sewing it, you can now divide by 2 and sew half on this side, half on this side, depending on what you want. But this is what works for me. So from here I'm going to make my crotch curve. This is my crotch curve. Then I'm going to connect it to my knee, then straight down to my ankle. Okay, so from my waist here, my side seam, I'm going to connect to my hip, then straight down. So this ½ inch at the side is just like as a guide for us to have equal width of circumference when it comes to knee circumference and the ankle circumference, for us to have equal width, so that I can have a guide to use it and mark your measurement. So that is why that ½ inch serves as a guide. So what I just did, I just connect it to my hip, then straight down. Okay, so on my waist here, my center front, I'm going to come down by 1¼ inch. Like I said in the beginning of the class, 1¼ inch here, and I'm going to connect it straight to my waist. So that it's going to help the waist to relax. It will not gap. It's not going to puff up or something like that. So that's what it does. So that's why you have to reduce the length. Let it be like a slanting waistline to give you that fit on your waist, on your center waist. So that's it for the trouser. So guys, remember, before cutting, make sure you go through your measurements again, so that you be sure that you mark the right measurements before you cut. So let me just go ahead and make sure my measurements are correct. My hip length is 7½. I added ½ inch to join the band, which is 8. Then my crotch depth is 10. I added ½ inch and 1¼ because of the 1¼ I'm removing here, which is 11¾ Then my knee length is 17. I added ½ inch, which is 17½, and my length of the trouser is 39. I added 2 inches for folding, which is 41. Then on my horizontal measurements, my waist is 10. 40 divided by 4, which is 10. I added 1½ same sewing allowance. Then on my hip is 12.48. Then I added 1½ seam sewing allowance as well. Then my lap is 15, sorry. I added 1½ sewing allowance as well. Then my knee circumference is 13. I added 1½ sewing allowance as well, which gave me 14½, and I marked that 14½ down here, 14½. So we are good to go ahead and cut. So I remove it and fold for my back. Okay, so for the back now, I'm not going to make the back waist and the front waist equal. So I'm going to come down a little bit, move it down a little bit so I can get my back waist. So my back waist now, I'm going to go up by 2.5 inches from the center front to get my back waist. 2.5 inches to get my back waist center. So I'll just connect it like this. Okay, so from here from the waist I'll connect it to this. So this is my back waist already. This is my back waist, and this is the center of my back. So from there now I'm going to add 1.5 inches allowance at the back. 1.5 inches allowance from the center front. 1.5 inch allowance. 1.5 inch. So here now I'm going to add, sorry, I need to have enough allowance here at the back, so I'm going to move it because my client has a big hip, has a big back side, so I need to make sure that I have enough allowance at the back so that I can sit well, so that if he's pulling up all the crotch, at least there's still some allowance left to still give it a crotch that will not be tight. Okay, so I have about okay, 2.5 inches is okay. So I'm going to start from the beginning to get my new center waist, which is here. Then connect. It's already connected, but let me give it a new line. Okay, so from here now I'm going to add my allowances for the back. So I'm adding 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Then on this my lap, the crotch, I'll extend the line, extend it to this end here. Okay, then the allowance I'm giving there is 2 inches. Okay, let me give 2.5. 2.5 inches should be enough because of her wide hips. 2.5 inches. Then here I'm going to give 2 inches at the side seam, inside seam of the trouser. 2 inches down. I'll mark 2 inches. I hope you guys are seeing my chalk. Please pardon me, I don't know if it's visible enough. So this is what we have. So what I'll do, I'll connect it. Connect it. Have you seen it? See the way I just connected it now, like this, then to the back crotch. Then from there I connect to my side. We call this side inside seam. That's what we call it, inside seam. Then this one is the side seam, or you can call it outer side seam, whichever one you want to call it. Okay, so I have my back ready to be cut. So I'm going to cut this way, this way, this way, then straight down. And remember, sometimes when you're cutting on directly on fabric, please just give a little space from the mark you made to avoid shortages. So it's better you give excess, at the end of the day you trim it off, than to cut directly on your chalk mark, on the mark you made. Sometimes these materials can disappoint somebody. They are not reliable sometimes, okay? So you just have to make sure you don't feel disappointed by it. Okay, so I'll cut my side. And if you're cutting, try and hold the fabric. Sometimes you just run faster than you while cutting. So you hold it firmly and cut. Okay, so I'll cut the side inside seam. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll come at the center and notch, because remember I added half inch. I added half inch to join the center and the inside seam. So I'm going to give it a notch so that I'll know where my center is. So I'll give this a notch, then give this a notch as well. So that's it for our trouser. Both the front and back are ready. So the next thing is for us to sew at the machine. So let me just give you a tip. If you are sewing your trouser, the easiest way you can sew this trouser is, first of all, get your center, your front center, stitch it half inch like this to your crotch. You stop there. You take this one as well, the center back, stitch it like this. Then when you are getting towards the curve area, you go in, you narrow your stitch by half inch and stitch to the end. Then after stitching it, the next thing is you press it, give it a good press, open it, open press. After open pressing, you spread it, the back and the center front, you spread it, the right side fabric facing the right side, both the front and back. Then you now stitch the side. After stitching the side, that excess that will appear at the inside seam from the back, you now fold it out like this in order to join the front inside seam. That excess that will remain like this, that 2 inches or 1.5 inches I'm giving you, put it like this, you know, this excess that I have now at the back, put it like this. Okay, that excess you have to fold it first of all before you now join it to your center front. and use your pin to hold them together. Then I use 1/2 inch to sew. At the end of the day, you will have the trouser inside seam like this when you're ironing. So those are the tips in you use in sewing a trouser. There are some people that will first of all join the side seams together, do the inside seams together before they join the center. I prefer joining the center together separately, center front, center back. After joining it, I do my side, I shape my side, then I come to the inside seam and fold. I'm folding that excess allowance I give at the back before joining it to my front and using 1/2 inch to sew it. I hope this tutorial was insightful and helpful for you. So these are my tips in sewing a trouser, and this is my freehand method of cutting trouser. Please kindly like and comment and share my videos, and if it's your first time of watching this video, kindly subscribe for more videos of helpful tips on how to sew and make it easy and simplify it for you. Thank you for watching. Bye.